Alright, now hopefully the batteries won't die in the middle of recording this time. Wow, the camera's tilted at the other angle this time. Last time when I was recording, I was so distracted by the camera being just slightly cocked in. I'll figure that part out. So, the reason why I'm recording this is my grandma suggested that I start documenting my process here, but that's getting ahead of myself. I don't know whether or not this series, I suppose, is going to be for my own benefit or for the benefit of others. I don't know whether I'm going to just keep it to myself, show it to friends, or let it be out there for total strangers. But whether you're trans or not, I suppose I will try to show you my story to maybe help yours be a bit easier to get through. So, introductions. My name is Aria. I'm a trans woman, age 20 at the time of recording this. I love music. I love video games. I do game design as a hobby. I'm a full-time Twitch streamer. And I dabble a little bit in game and music creation. I also do art. I do a lot of things, just for the record. A lot of people would describe me as a creative type. I'm not sure whether or not that's accurate. Maybe it is. I don't want to sound narcissistic. What, does anyone want to sound narcissistic? But I straight up feel funny talking in front of a camera like this. Like, no one's watching right now. This isn't being live streamed. I'm not reading a script or anything like that. It's just me freeform documenting on my camera. So this is a bit of an unusual experience for me. Maybe in the future I'll, like, script out a few questions. I don't know, maybe I'll publish some of this as I go. And, yeah, I will edit and publish these as short little videos. Anyway, suppose now that introductions are out of the way, I can tell you my story so far. I was growing up in not so pleasant circumstances. My parents were not financially well off. They weren't particularly that poor or anything, but they weren't really well off enough to have a particularly nice house. We had a 2-bedroom house in Edmond, Oklahoma, which if you just say it like that, it honestly does sound a little bit swanky. Until you realize that this neighborhood was kind of broken down. You couldn't find a singular patch of concrete that didn't have cracks all over it. There were so many neighbors who, while most of them were certainly kind, they also weren't particularly high class. I'm not trying to judge them or anything like that here. It's just we were middle class. Everyone was middle class there. But my parents always forced this kind of expectation on me to be like them. And I don't know if my mom had this idea, but I certainly know my dad did. And I was pretty much pushed into getting into firearms and combat and all sorts of things which I probably likely wouldn't have gotten into otherwise. And at this point, I'm finding myself a lot more distant from those things. And I'm not exactly sure how to feel about that. You know, I don't know if I'm supposed to be sad about the fact that I'm not as violent as my father. You know, that doesn't seem like a bad thing to me. But my dad was trying to push me into doing a lot of car work. You know, he taught me to change the oil, he dragged me into changing out the family car's engine with him. Well, it wasn't changing out, it was rebuilding. We changed out the cylinders. We ill-advisedly removed the muffler completely. We didn't have a replacement for, like, I want to say 2 years. That was loud. It was still loud after we added a muffler, but it didn't worsen any headaches once we added the muffler in, and it was legal when we finally added the muffler in. I'm gonna incriminate my parents a little bit less, maybe. But when my dad realized that I wasn't going to follow in his desired footsteps, he decided to start controlling me in his own different way. He realized that I was wanting to get into game design. So he set me up with the tools I needed for game design, and as I started developing ideas, he would begin suggesting his own, and he would keep piling them on top of me, and he would push them hard enough that I would give up and put whatever idea he had in. And there was a project which I was really excited for, known as Steadfast. It was one of mine. It was going to be a puzzle-based zombie survival game about a boy and his dog. And you were going to play as the dog. But he pushed his ideas hard enough that once I left the house I realized what he had done. But it was too late. I didn't remember where my ideas ended and his began. It was tough to give that up, but I had to. Other ways that he would abuse me oftentimes took place earlier in life. There was a bit of a legal issue because my parents had physically abused me. They would spank me. And I didn't realize until later on in life that I had developed PTSD from this, flashbacks included. It hasn't been till until recently when I started seeing my counselor that these flashbacks have been less sensitive to trigger. And it's rough. The DPS got involved in my life when they learned about the spanking, because I had come to daycare one day with my butt blistered and bruised and bloodied. And I understand that it was like a 6-month-long legal battle until my parents regained custody. And instead of ceasing the abuse afterwards, they moved to psychological abuse. I can't remember a lot of what happened, but I do remember my dad telling me about how once he removed my bedroom door. Apparently he did put it back on, but I can imagine at the time it was a rather traumatic thing. I can't say for sure, as that's not something that I specifically remember. What I do specifically remember, though, was through elementary school when he had quite a habit for slapping me across the face when I said something that he didn't like. And towards the end of his slapping habit, he began throwing things at me, which persisted through high school. And I remember that on my 18th birthday, I was quick to anger at a lot of stimuli, and I was snappy. I'm not going to say that I didn't deserve some kind of discipline that day, but my father's 18th birthday present to me was a black eye. He didn't like how I was behaving, so he challenged me to spar with him out on the front porch. And my choice that he gave me was either spar with him or leave home. And I felt backed into a corner. I thought that I didn't have an option. He had previously told me that if I was ever kicked out of the house, that he would tell my grandparents on both sides of the family, all members, to not help me. And I realize how ridiculous that is now, but at the time, I actually believed that that would work. And I don't know why, because I realized that everyone in the family, nobody would let me just be out on the streets. If I called someone, they'd come get me. But yeah, my 18th birthday present was a black eye, because in his sparring match, he decided to psych me out quite a bit and take me by surprise when he punched me with the side of his fist right here. And that same night, he had the audacity to tell me that he loves me. I remember the night when my parents found out that I'm trans. It did happen, but they probably don't recall it if you ask them. At least they don't claim to recall it. But I was probably about 17 at the time, and there was a bit of an unspoken understanding that I can essentially just do whatever at night as long as I'm still certainly awake the next morning and not, you know, mean, for lack of a better polite word. And when they discovered that I'm trans, my dad didn't support me or accept me. He told me I was confused, and he made fun of me. He forced masculinity on me. That's kind of just the dad I remember. That's why I didn't ever come out to him. That's why I never directly told him. Because I knew that's exactly what he would do. And he tried to deny it. He tried to act like he was being supportive. There's no way you can count that as supportive. That's more abuse. And he also had the idea in his head that he and I had a good relationship. Right. A good relationship where your birthday presents to me are physical abuse. Because it's legal then. Well, no, it wasn't really legal. It was assault. I could have straight up called the cops on him. In fact, I probably should have. He wasn't doing anything for the household. In fact, that was when his alcohol addiction was escalating, and I want to say it wasn't too long after that where he blew the family budget on sex toys. Yeah, there was I want to say there was a $60 transaction from Christie's Toy Box on the family credit card. Great. Classy one, Dad. And the one time he decided to apologize to me, it wasn't a real apology. He told me that he's upset at how I feel. Or that, no, he's sorry that I'm upset. He's sorry that I feel like he's abused me. He's sorry that I feel like he's taken over everything that means something to me. That's not an apology. An apology is for when you actually feel bad. You know, I would be less upset if he had straight up called me and told me, you know what, I don't care about how you feel, and I think what I did was, right. You know, that would have... It would have been honest, at least. You know? But as his alcohol addiction was escalating, I out of the house for an extended period of time, and my mom left the house for a few weeks because of a major abusive event, which I won't explain in detail. I'm just going to say that the police were called. And over the weeks that I was with my grandparents, I realized that the treatment I was getting back at my parents' house wasn't normal. I was always given the difficult, dirty chores to do. My stressors were invalidated by my father so that he could push his own off on me, which I'm not going to say that his stressors were invalid, but my stressors were, hey, I can't get this to work, so I can't make a living. Whereas his stressors were, I'm having a problem with Windows, or I'm too much of a lazy a-hole to get a job, so our only funds come from Mom. Or I'm emotionally abusing my kid and manipulating them into thinking that they can't get a job, or else it'll ruin their game design career. So we're not making enough money. And I'm gonna hold that over my kid's head as well, despite the fact that I'm the one who encouraged them not to do that. The reason why I'm using gender-neutral pronouns, by the way, is because obviously my dad never used she, her for me. And my mom says that he's gotten better, but I can't hear or see him without thinking of everything that he's done to me. I have actual PTSD with flashbacks and everything. Because of what that man did to me. I find him extremely difficult to forgive. The night I came out to my grandma was difficult, and I can't say that it's not difficult at this point, but I can say that she has been trying to give me support. I came out on a summer night. I can't remember what summer night. I don't do a great job of keeping track of dates. I know it's the 19th of October 2019 right now. I'll keep that in the final video here, hopefully, if it's still recording. But, actually I'm gonna check if it's still recording. Yeah, it is. But I had this clear, concise plan to tell her, but all I could really get out was a weak-sounding "I'm trans." And I have regrets about that, but there's nothing I can really do about it now. We're still working on pronouns and names, but she says that she'll work more on it once I'm out, which I'm I'm not yet. Obviously. Just got back from a vacation where I was pretty much out. I didn't tell anyone I'm trans, I just presented as feminine, and most people were convinced that I'm not male. Except for one guy. There was one guy who called me sir. Anyway. Grandma did also tell my granddad that I'm trans. So I hope that this was a good little video thing. So yeah. See you next time.